Assalamu alaikum. Hello and welcome, guys, to Freshly Grounded. Guys, this episode is with Kae Kurd. This is a different episode than we've normally done because it's probably our first podcast with like an entertainer who is not in the normally we interview people in the da'wah scene and this, that, the other. But Kae is a stand-up comic and he is someone that I used to work with in retail, and he's done like the Edinburgh Fringe and many other stages. And, after we done the Marina Ali interview, I thought to myself, not where do we go from here? Because there's still so many people we can get on. But I also want to broaden our horizon. I don't just want to interview people in the da'wah. I want to also interview all types of people, people in different fields. Even if that ends up being people that we don't even agree with. Like, I'm not saying that's Kae, but I'm saying, like, for example, we've had suggestions from you guys that we should have, like, people on here, like, that are completely like people who oppose Islam, and you're saying bring them onto the podcast. So I don't know if I would want to do that because I don't want to turn it into a debate thing, but I would definitely be interested in bringing other people on in different fields who are, Muslim, non-Muslim, but we could just learn about their mindset and take from them in terms of mindset or success, etc. And it goes without saying that the views and opinions of the guests on Freshly Grounded are not always necessarily the views and opinions of the hosts or the producers or anyone else involved. This is like an interview platform, and so I don't know, I guess I'm saying that because in the future, when we do start interviewing more people of different fields, I suppose people might, it might turn heads and be like, hold on a second, I thought you guys were like an Islamic podcast, and now you're like interviewing people who like we wouldn't agree with, etc. So that's why I mentioned that. In this episode with Kae, we discuss a lot about, because he's a stand-up comic, he can talk in front of a crowd and do it very confidently. And I really wanted to learn about public speaking. We discuss some current events. We talk about life. We talk about how we met. And yeah, it's pretty cool. This episode is brought to you by 59. That's 50_NINE on Instagram. It's 59 is a cafe, a wellness caf. I'm about to say wellness bar. In St Albans, Hertfordshire. It's amazing. Freshly ground coffee, freshly squeezed juices. You're going to have the time of your life if you go there. And if you head over there and you quote Freshly Grounded, you get a pound off anything. Also brought to you by Izaha. That's izaha.com. Izaha.com. Great Arabic caps for your head. Go to izaha.com to get 20% off. Oh, sorry, type in Freshly Grounded to get 20% off. Also, guys, we now live stream our episodes on Twitch. So subscribe to us on twitch.tv/Freshly Grounded. If you want to become a premium subscriber of Patreon of Freshly Grounded, which means you get the episode one day early and you're able to support us in a financial manner, then go to patreon.com/Freshly Grounded. That's patreon.com/Freshly Grounded. And if you want to be a sponsor of the episode and have your business or brand shouted out at the front or in the middle of the episode, then head over to freshlygrounded.com/partner. This podcast is brought to you by FeedSource. FeedSource provides custom Instagram photos of your product on demand. I should probably just record this whole script one time in it and just insert it in. That's a good idea. This is a company my brother owns and runs from these very offices and has made life easier, cheaper and much more efficient for hundreds of brands. Our team have created content for the likes of Hilton, Dell and Deliveroo, as well as many other startups and small businesses who are just looking to get high quality images of their products. FeedSource is designed to be super simple to use, if I may say so myself. All you do is visit feedsource.com and explore our different styles of images to find one that matches your brand. You then choose how many images you'd like to create it, and if you're in the UK, you can have your products collected the next working day, completely free. Your images are then created and delivered to you through your online brand panel within 7 days. Prices start from as low as £129 for 9 custom images. We don't use stock imagery or any kind of template. It really is 100% bespoke images created of your product. You can get 25% off your first order using the code FG25. Just go to feedsource.com to place your first order. That's FEEDSAUCE.com. FeedSource. High quality custom Instagram photos of your product on demand. Remember, use code FG25 at checkout to get 25% off your order. Guys, this is Freshly Grounded. Thank you much for listening to the intro. Thank you much for listening into the intro. Let's get into it.
And welcome
to Freshly Grounded, the brand new podcast by best friends Faisal and Sam.
Huh?
I said welcome to Freshly Grounded,
No, after that bit.
the brand new podcast
And after that bit?
by best friends Faisal and Sam.
Really?
Well, this week we did this week we did episode with Moeen Ali. I don't know if you heard or saw.
Cricketer.
Yeah. Oh, you mean 2015 Cricketer of the Year, Moeen Ali? Yeah.
Mad.
Yeah. But because of that.
It's very interesting to me how
Well, why don't you take a damn mic?
It's very interesting to me how British Asians always like gravitate towards cricket rather than football or anything like that.
Well, no, I'm not into cricket or football, so I'm equally not obsessed with any of them. But I just know how much of a big deal he is. Yeah. So my point was that these things that we use to hold down the table. Now you can grab it. I took them because I was interviewing him.
Ah.
It's like when people like are just trying to say one thing. It's like when people are trying to say something and then they have to like compliment themselves to say it. You know what I mean? Like and it's completely irrelevant. Like for example, like oh bro, so the other day I went to the gym and I was doing
I had to do 100 kg bench press.
Yeah,
but then
100 kg bench press, and then I went to the shop and the milk that they sell it were out of date. What? So we had no value on. So now you're like after Marina. I don't know when I'm going to put this episode out. Actually, it's probably going to be in a few weeks because
that's fine. Just send me the picture or like the video clip that you want to advertise there, and I'll put it on my page.
Yeah, sick. The reason is because for the first time ever, bro, we're doing 3 episodes in 1 week. We're filming 3 episodes in 1 week. Normally, we shoot an episode and we put it out that week.
And it's much more current and
yeah.
So do you still do current events?
We do, and we're going to plan to do them for this episode, but we hadn't prepared them.
Okay.
I feel like you'd be a perfect person to current events with, though. So maybe we'll try and get some current events prepared.
Man, I would.
At some point.
I would love to. I would love to.
So let's speak a bit about comedy.
Okay. I feel like you're going to grill me. I feel like there's so many different questions that you want to get down to the bare bones of.
Just make sure you have the mic closer to your mouth because our mic's a bit different. Oh, we haven't got a top quality Russell Kane mic. Sorry, we have to have.
This guy.
We have to have a bit close to your mouth. Bro, so does this feel like an inferior version of a podcasting because you have been on such big podcasts?
Not really, because I do a podcast with a bunch of other comedians where I edit and stuff myself.
Okay,
I've actually got that same audio interface.
Oh, really?
Yeah. XLR cables and all sorts. So I know how
Where's
it
your
is.
coffee gone?
No, I'm just using that drink. I'm having that drink. I finished my coffee. So we're there. Yeah, no, I loved it. I love it. I mean, obviously, I'm not getting paid, but
well, not really, to be
but
honest.
I love doing these ones because it's where the love's at.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I actually hated you when I first met you.
Oh wow! I mean, is this going in the podcast?
No, joking. I didn't hate you, but when I first met you, I was really like your personality is so strong that I was like taken aback by it. So for the people listening, we first met at can I say
a retailer?
Yeah, we met at a job application, didn't we?
Yeah.
So we applied for the same job, and we met at the training for the job, and that's how we met.
Yeah.
And so we did 2 weeks training together, and at first I was like, whoa, like this guy is a lot, and like. I think
intense.
It was intense, yeah. It wasn't like I didn't dislike you in your personality, but you were so much that I was like, it was a lot. Yeah.
I can see why you feel like that. I feel like a lot of people when they first meet me have said to me, "Oh, I hated you. You were so loud. You were annoying." But then I think once you actually get to know me and have a proper conversation with me, I mean, this sounds so like egotistical.
Yeah. I might come across obnoxious, but I'm actually amazing.
No. But as in once you understand where it comes from.
That way it doesn't sound obnoxious coming from you. At first, when you meet you, it's like raw, like this guy is obnoxious. No, I'm joking. But then spend 2 weeks with a guy in training, and you realize, bro, you're very down to earth. You're very honest. And bro, like another thing I noticed because I worked with you for 8-9 months and almost a year actually. And another thing I noticed is that like your moral standards are very high and you're very intellectual. So it's not the things that yeah. It's not the so my initial like reaction to you was completely wrong. So do forgive me for that. But
yeah, of course I couldn't hate you.
You could.
I could never hate you.
You could. I really do miss a lot of like our like shifts and stuff. You know when we used to be on the top at the doors?
Yeah.
And it would just be like a few of us.
Yeah.
I miss those kind of shifts, man.
Yeah. I mean that sort of stuff doesn't happen anymore. But
doesn't it? Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. But yeah, no. I mean, obviously, it's interesting that you say that. It's because, I mean, I think throughout the past couple of years, I have made a active effort in order to sort of change my personality in a
Why?
sense. Not change it per se, but
Improve.
I think I've got a lot more towards a space where I feel like I don't really need to impress anybody. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think before it was a lot more about, oh, like me, everybody like me, and then when it comes across to try hard, when you first met me, I feel like there was an element of that in it, where it's like, oh my god, like, wow, everybody should like me. It comes from a sense of insecurity as well, I feel, and then gradually I just stopped, I think. So I think now I understand when to turn it on and when to turn it off, especially somebody that's always on stage and whatever. It's hard to sometimes switch off because you're like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's that constant thing as well when you're a comedian. People are like, oh, you're a comedian?
Maybe laugh.
Tell us a joke. Make me laugh, which you don't get in any other field. Nobody ever asks you, to do what you're doing.
No one's just me, oh, interview me, man.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Like, you don't get that, Nobody goes to you, oh, sell me a hat.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? In mid-conversation. So there's always that sort of level of pressure as well sometimes, where people are like, he's not really funny, or he's too serious to be a comedian. So I think there was elements of that in it. But I think as you get older as well, there's a level of maturity and self-awareness that you get to where you start valuing what's important as well.
Well, I admire that in you, and I think that this is one thing that this is a trait that I don't feel like I see in enough people, and it's the trait and I was actually speaking to my wife about this exact thing last night, and it was that I admire the fact. I admire when people are honest with themselves, and I really hate when people feel like they are completely perfect and that they have nothing to improve of themselves, because it's impossible in every single way, whether that is in like your personality, your spirituality, your lack of patience, your anger issues. And one thing I notice when I speak to you is that you have a very like honest. It's like you're just real with yourself, and you say, you know what, I want to improve this, and I can improve it, so I'm going to work at improving it. And it's and I would like to think that I'm similar. Like, I would like to say that my patience is very low, for example, but I feel like, yes, it is something that is embedded in me. Like, as in, I would say it's genetic. However, I would also say that that doesn't mean it can't be changed. And so I'm going to constantly work every day of my life to try and improve my personality. But I think the people who are at a true
I don't
loss,
necessarily think a lot of it's genetic. I mean, you've always got the argument of nature over nurture, right?
Well, I really debated this, and there's in no way my nurture is lack of patience.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. There's certain things that happen to you. They say a human is fully formed at about 5 years old, like mentally and whatever. They're formed at 5 years old, right?
Yeah.
So whatever happens in those formative years are incredibly important into how you develop as a human being. So there may be experiences that you've had, like from birth to about 5 years old, that you don't realize that have contributed to the way you are as a human being. Even certain things like where you see certain people deal with confidence issues their whole life, it stems from, for example, being told, no, you can't move there, shh, be quiet, as a kid or whatever, which is why it's so important when you're raising a child to be aware of all of these things as well, because at the end of the day, you're shaping a human being's like thought processes.
Yeah, you're right. I would agree with all of that, and I would say that have you had quite a liberal upbringing, or have you had a strict?
It was very strict. Yeah,
that surprised me, because I've had quite a liberal upbringing, and I would say that one of the things that allows me to be honest with myself is the fact that I had a liberal upbringing. Whereas I know people who have had a very strict upbringing, and it's led to them being very closed people and like not being open to suggestions from people or improvements or criticism. And I'll be the first to say that I'm not very good with criticism, I'll be honest, or like I can get offended.
Why is that though?
I wouldn't quite be able to put my finger on it. Omo would be a good person to ask.
Do you feel like you can't take criticism unless it's from somebody you respect? Or do you feel like...
Omar, why do you think that I can't take criticism, honestly? Jump on mic. Because Omar would know better. Omar is one human in the world that knows
because
better
for
than me.
for me, sometimes I can understand why somebody wouldn't be able to take criticism from somebody that they don't respect, or somebody that they don't care about their opinion. But are you just generally like that, or?
I don't think you can. What do you mean you can't take criticism? Like, you do listen.
So he probably respects you. That's why. Like anything you.
What? Give me a context of like situation.
Okay, like for example, I said that my point was that people who I think only based on experience, that because I said because I'm based in a liberal. I was raised in a liberal way, in the fact that we didn't have a very strict upbringing. I mean, there's certain things I suppose, but generally, in a general consensus, if you compare us to other like cultural families, we didn't have the maddest like strict upbringing, right? And so I'd say because of that, I'm able to be honest with myself and say, oh, like I hate the fact that I'm not very patient, and therefore I want to improve it. Whereas I know people who have had a very strict upbringing and they're not willing to take any criticism at all. And then I kind of caveated that by saying that I'm not very good at taking criticism actually. And Kae asked why, and I said Omar's probably a better person to ask.
I don't know. I don't think criticism's your thing. I think it's more, it's very difficult because I don't think criticism's your problem. It's more like, you know, your way of dealing with situations that holds you back.
Why? But do you think that's because of lack of patience? Because I think that's what it is.
Probably lack of patience.
Maybe
probably
pride,
like,
and pride isn't necessarily a good thing to have.
Okay. I'm going to sound like the most arrogant person by saying this, but I don't think I have.
Yeah, I don't think it's pride. I think it's that,
because I make a fool out of myself in so many of my videos that if I had like an ego by now, I'll be like, oh, I'm not putting that out because I look like a mug. Well, I look like a mug.
You know what it is?
But you as a comedian, you can't have really pride and ego that much, can you?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it depends what kind of comedian you are. I mean, if anybody calls me a clown, I get really angry about it. And do you know what I mean? Like,
really?
Yeah, no, I'm not a clown. I always feel like there's a difference between a comedian and a clown, and a comedian has something to say. Why would someone
call you a clown? As in, like, would they just, what are they trying to?
Well, even if they're like, oh, you clown, I'm like,
oh, okay, that's
don't call me a clown, bro. Like, it's really, I don't know. It's something that I just don't like the idea.
I also think though, with comedians and that type of stuff that you do, the way you communicate and talk is very unique to your. It's like a style, you know what I mean? It's like you move in style.
There's a rhythm to it.
Yeah, people don't normally do that. People normally are like very kind of like just like mono, you know. So when you're like in that way, it's the right type of people can admire it. The wrong type of people can be envious, you know, because you see that and be like, how can he see everything? Because a comedian's mind has to work very left. You know what I mean? Like everything, everyone sees this way, and you see it in some different light. Every single situation, you know, and it's a very unique way of being.
Do you know what that just reminded me of? That I watched this. You know Jeff Ross, yeah. Obviously,
he's the roast master general.
He has to. His thing is to roast, yeah, and this guy, I hate
roast, by the way. Like, I did a roast and I got killed.
Have you been in a roast?
I've done a roast where it was just a roast battle.
But I thought you'd be amazing at roasting.
Yeah, so did I. And then I got there and I died. Like, because a lot of it depends on like, there's so many different variables that you've got to take into account, right? Like when you're doing a roast, say for example, you just purely your physicality as well. If you're like somebody like you're a bit bigger or whatever, you're hench.
Shut up, bro.
No, but I'm just saying, right?
Can we just say, okay, he's nothing like this off air. Everyone just witness what he's like off air, and he jumps the mic. He's like, yeah, like mashallah, you.
No, but like,
God, can you check my jump?
No. But my point is, say for example, somebody like you goes up against like somebody that's quite small or whatever, right? Immediately, you look like the aggressor,
right?
So you're not seen as the crowd's favorite because everybody loves an underdog, right?
Of course.
So if you're saying mean things to somebody, they're just looking at you like, yo, like, why are you being mean to him? And then when he's doing it, he could say something that's not even half as funny. Like, oh, but having said that, when I done it, I was probably ill prepared as well. But yeah, sorry, you were saying Jeff Ross,
Yeah, so Jeff Ross, he was actually roasting someone, and they kind of gave it back to him, and then he had no reply, and it looked like he really crushed his ego. He just moved on. No, it was. Have you seen Yes Theory?
Have I seen
Yes Theory, the YouTube channel?
No.
You would love Yes Theory, bro. You have to watch it. It's these guys, and they're just like the idea of it is basically they say yes to things. They just challenged Will Smith to a bungee jump over the Grand Canyon, and he accepted. You have to watch. Go to YouTube, type in Yes Theory.
Have you ever done a bungee jump?
I'm jumping out. Oh, I can't say that. I'm doing something similar next month, but
I've done skydiving.
Yeah, how is it?
One of the best things I've ever done in my life. Like, it's just crazy. You just realize it's just such a not just liberating, but it just gives you a perspective as to how insignificant you are.
Okay, well, I'm skydiving next month.
It gives you that level of insignificance, and you're like, oh wow, like, this doesn't mean anything essentially. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is all fleeting.
I'm skydiving next month, but no one knows.
Well,
But everyone on the live stream now knows. And the reason no one can know is because
9 people.
because the reason no one can know is because we have to still launch like the project, and also I'm surprising someone with it, and so now it's kind of I just realized we live stream, but inshallah it doesn't get paid out.
We missed it.
Omar, you might be doing it. You reckon you're up for it? Omar's scared to do it because he was like, I rang him, I was like, bro, listen, do you want to jump in? Bro, this is what I said to Omar. He goes, I've got a family. But I get that he's family, but
but that's the thing though. I remember when I told my dad I wanted to jump out of my plane, and my dad just looked at me like, "Do you want to jump out of a plane?" like he couldn't understand like why are you doing it? It was like for fun. That's fun. Like he couldn't understand that like there's a level of adrenaline rush that I need to experience because obviously he's had such a different upbringing to me. So but no, when you do it, because I did it, the one where you're strapped on somebody's back.
Yeah, of course that's what I'm doing. I'm not gonna.
On their front. Sorry,
my first time I'm doing it alone, guys. Don't worry, I got the parachute.
They're strapped. You're strapped on their front, and they're so they're behind you.
Okay.
And they tell you to like open your mouth as you jump out and shout and all of this sort of stuff, just so like your lungs don't have air going into it. So you have to be able, so you don't mess up your breathing essentially, and you have to have your arms out in a certain way as you're jumping out and whatnot, just so. You're the most aerodynamic or whatever it is possible, and you're not like.
I'm so excited, but I'm so scared. So during the day,
I was so happy,
bro. During the day, I'm excited, and during the night, Shaitan comes and gives me some like proper waswas, and he starts scaring me. Like in the day, I'm like, oh, I'm so excited, skydiving. At night time, I'm up in bed.
If you've got faith, yeah. So I mean, if it's your time, it's your time, right?
That's true.
So.
Yeah, it's true.
Do you see where I'm coming from? So you can't go into it like that. I think you should just look at the positives of it.
Yeah, I'm going to love it, inshallah. So that's the plan. But anyway, let's carry on talking about comedy, because we're going off on so many tangents because I'm so excited to speak to Kae Kurd. Bro, what I wanted to say about comedy and comedians is you often hear comedians say... I listen to a lot of podcasts that like stand-up... A lot of stand-up comedians do podcasting. Anyway, I listen to a lot of them.
Yeah.
And
it's the easiest way to get their opinions, though.
I suppose so. You often hear a lot of stand-up comedians say that all comedians have like a specific personality trait, but when you look at comedians, bro, so many of them are so vast that I don't know what that personality trait is. So as a comedian, what is it that comedians have that is in common? Because I would look at someone like, James Acaster, I think this is it, and then look at someone like you.
Wow, I didn't even think you'd ever know about James Acaster.
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
Do you like his comedy?
I respect what he does. I mean, I don't.
You
think
don't like his comedy?
No. It's not that I don't like it. I just think I respect his level of skill, and because he's been somebody that's been nominated for the Edinburgh Comedy Award like
really 5
years in a row, and never, like, do you know what I mean? So that takes, you have to have a specific level of skill to get there. But
so what is it that comedians have in common? What's his personality trait in comedian? What is it that you can't be comedian or stand-up comedian unless you have this, or stand-up comic?
I think there must be an element of, people talk about all the time the look at me gene. Look at me, hey, I'm doing stuff. And musicians have it. But with comedians, I think there has to be like, any comedian you talk to, there's some level of trauma in there, or something that's happened to them that's made them think like, oh, I need to get on stage and be loved. Because I mean, when you think about it, like when you actually dissect it from a psychological point of view, you have to be insane to do it. Right, you're going on stage every night asking for strangers' validation,
and you have to be willing to have people shout abuse at you.
Well, not necessarily abuse. I mean, that depends on your level of skill and experience on how you deal with that, and there's different factors of where you're doing it and whatnot. But it's more the you're going on stage and giving people your ideas, and what you're essentially asking them to do is like these. And if somebody's truly confident within themselves and their thought process, would you really need to do that? I don't think so. You'd write a book.
But do you think that comedy is also an element of you're saying something that everyone was thinking?
Well, I mean, it's developed into that. You've got social commentary. That's always a necessary part of any society. I feel like any free society, because I always think the best jokes come from an element of truth or that people can relate to. So it has to be something that people are saying that's on people's minds, but what is it that drives you to be wanting to be the person that says that? Do you see where I'm coming from? Like, what is it? And that's where it comes down to, like, where you get a lot of comedians as well that suffer from depression and you know, you've had loads of comedians like commit suicide or attempt to.
Of course.
Yeah. It's like there's a level of acceptance and wanting of validation, and also I think there's searching in happiness in so many different areas and not getting it.
And do you think that being a stand-up comic, this might be a somewhat offensive question, because, okay, let me ask the question and then I'll explain it before you answer it. So my question is, do you think that stand-up comedy is something that anybody could do, like with the right training, education, practice, etc.? And then my explanation to that is that sometimes when you see people who are amazing at what they do, like you see, for example, someone who does poetry or spoken word poetry, when they're so good at what they do, you could tell they're so good at it because they make it look easy, and it makes you think, wow, I can do that. But the thing is, you can't actually do it. It's just that they're so good that they make it look easy. Do you think that comedy is the same thing, and do you think that anybody could do it?
I think, in answer to your question, I think anybody can be taught the skills in order to go on stage and be confident and comfortable being on stage, but I don't think you can teach funny. So that's the simple answer of it. I think anybody that gets into stand-up comedy gets into it either because they're always a funny one out of their friends or not. And what's so funny is they spend years trying to work out how to be like the person that's them off stage. Because once you go on stage, you're like, oh, there's lights in my eyes, there's a mic, there's a stand, there's people. So you go through all these different experiences in order to try and come across as a professional, right? Whereas what you really need to get back to is the bare bones of your personality and who you were and who that guy is that makes his friends laugh in a room.
Explain to me how a person can become so comfortable on stage. Like, well, I've seen you on stage and you're so comfortable. And bro, you see me when I go on stage, and this is just public speaking I'm talking about. Like, people say to me, bro, you're so good at public speaking, this, that, the other. And I have watched myself back and stuff, and I suck. Like, bro, you know when I get nervous, I jump on stage, my mouth starts quivering, and I can't help it. Like, I jump on stage, and I'm like,
but all that means is you care about what you're saying.
But how do you come across natural? Give us some tips.
The preparation is the best thing I could say. Be prepared. Know what you want to say. Know how you're going to say it. Rehearse it. Keep saying it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. I think preparation and experience are the two biggest elements of it. The more you prepare yourself, so with any sort of problem that occurs in your life, you can only look at the variables that you can control, right? There's no point worrying about the things that you can't control.
Correct.
So you don't, like, is there going to be any audience members? Are the audience members going to be rude? This, that, the other. That's not down to you. What you have to focus on is, what am I saying? So in your instance, it's like public speaking. So you've got to know your story or your pitch or whatever it is. You've got to know that like the back of your hand. So without any notes or whatever, that way, then you can worry about the performance of it, as opposed to, like, what have I said? What have I done? Do you see where I'm coming from? Then you can worry about the performance of it. If you're too worried about like the audience and what they may or may not say or what they may or may not do, you're gonna get lost into it, and that's when you start overthinking things as well.
I think you're right. I think that's what it is. But bro, so when you first ever performed in front of people, I mean, obviously it's a stupid question to say. Oh, was it? Like
I used to perform. So when I was in like primary school and nursery and stuff, I was always the person that was speaking at assemblies.
Yeah, same, but I'm still nervous when I stand in front of people to do some sort of public speaking, and you're not. So were you? You know when you first started comedy? You know your first.
The first time I started doing comedy, my leg was shaking.
Okay.
I'd never felt my leg shake in my life.
And you know your face? Did your face look nervous and stuff?
I was so scared. Like, I'd done so much public speaking. I was the head boy in my sixth form. I'd do like assemblies and speeches and whatnot, and I was never scared. I was like, well, this is whatever. Look at me. I love it. This is great. Again, that's sort of like, oh my God, like people need to look at me. But then when I got to, when I started doing comedy, it was a whole different ball game, because it's not only are you telling people to listen to you, it's telling people to like you, and that's a very different thing.
But I just think that even the notion itself of not even the comedy now, even just the notion of where's that? You looking at your phone?
No, I think I forgot my AirPods.
You left your AirPods.
I don't know where I've left them. Anyway, it's probably here. Carry on.
I'm not even talking right now about the comedy aspect, but I'm just saying, yeah, even just to be able to stand in front of people and talk confidently. How is it? So, is what you're saying that the best way to do that and to come across so confident is by experience? Because
preparation and experience.
Okay.
Preparation and experience. So if you know like the back of your hand what you're gonna say, 20 minutes, an hour.
Because the way you roll on stage, I've never seen anyone roll on stage like that. Never. The way I see you roll on stage, I was like, oh, like it's like he's just like there's like what 200 strangers in front of him, and he's just acting like he's so cool. Like you just know, it's like you have to have surely you have to have a level of like.
Yeah, but
I'm the best.
But that's not. Well, I mean, I used to do for a long period of my life, because I was so nervous before I'd go on stage. There was this TED talk I watched about how to make yourself confident, right?
Yeah.
And I always thought to myself, I don't struggle with confidence and whatnot, but it was very interesting. And it was saying like do things like power poses and that sort of stuff, like stand like a superhero. Yeah, I'd do that off stage before I was going on. Like I put my hands on my side like that, and like with my chest out, just like, yo, like I'm powerful.
Do you still do it?
Sometimes, yeah. When I'm like really nervous, I'll do it. But I mean, the other thing was as well. I used to say to myself, and I used to repeat it like 1,000 times: "You're funnier than Eddie Murphy. You're funnier than Eddie Murphy. You're funnier than Eddie Murphy. You're funnier than Eddie Murphy." Until like. You begin to believe it, right? So by the time I get on stage and it's like, ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for Kae Kurd, and everyone's clapping, and then you're going on there and you're like, okay, yeah, it's for me. So at that point in time, you're like, okay, I believe it, right? But also, I think it was what I was saying, like preparation comes back into it. It's a lot of people think comedians just go on stage and just say whatever's on the top of their heads. It would be wonderful if it was like that, which it's not, right? It's something that people work at, and like you've got jokes that you're going to say, and sometimes you know what order it's going to be in and all of that. So you've got like, for this audience, you've got a level of funny. So you know what you're going to say to them. So you can make them laugh. And also, I think audiences can smell fear.
Yeah, like dogs.
So well, I wouldn't want to call them that, but yeah. But
audiences can smell fear, can't they?
Of course, yeah.
So you're calling the audience the dogs,
but audiences can smell fear. So yeah. I think
when they see
there's times where you see certain comedians, for example. Sorry to cut you off. Yeah. There's certain comedians that you see that can sell a joke purely based on their confidence rather than the actual writing itself, because of the way it's performed, or because of the conviction they have within their voice when they're saying the joke, and it's often the case where if it sounds like you don't believe what you're saying, how are the audience meant to believe what you're saying? You've got to be the one that believes in it wholeheartedly for them to go, oh, okay, that's all right. Because sometimes you've got these like wayward and wacky theories on stage that you're saying to people, and it's all fun and banter. Like sometimes you're just trying to make a point or whatever, but you're using such a crazy example. You need to try and get them on board. And it's like, listen, this is the way I feel like. Bill Burr does it quite a lot. Chappelle does it quite a lot as well. Like he's got these crazy theories that people are like, what are you talking about? But you get on board with it, even if you don't agree with it, because you just think, oh, it's funny.
Chris D'Elia does that a lot as well. Did you know Chris D'Elia? He's American.
Yeah, I know of him as well, yeah. Do you know what's so funny, right? People say to me, like, do you know this comedian? Do you know that comedian? I've stopped watching so much stand-up comedy now. It's unreal. Like, I don't tend to watch a lot of stand-up specials, bar the people that sort of like got me into it.
Do you feel like if you were to watch too much that you might end up like trying to like be like one? Like, yeah, if I watch YouTube videos that inspire me, I want to create a video exactly like it.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how like subconsciously that could come into it. Yeah. Like I remember at one point writing jokes, and I was doing them in a Bill Burr impression, and I was like, what am I doing? This isn't my this isn't me. This isn't who I am, kind of thing. Yeah, there is an element of that, but you see it with like musicians and stuff a lot as well. Like they you could tell sometimes when you hear like a particular musician who they've been listening to when they come out with a song or a freestyle or whatever, and you're like, oh, okay, so that's who you've been inspired by. But it's not just that. I just feel like it's like a magician knowing the tricks. And I know it sounds very arrogant, but it's like sometimes with comedy, because it's a field that you're in, you can see what other people are going with their material. So what's funny is when I don't know where they're going with it. So,
right, that's what's amazing about comedy, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
so
when
I'm
it
like,
shocks you, kind of thing.
yeah, so I'm like, what are you doing? But when you're in the industry and you've watched so many comedians before and seen so many people, there's certain times where you can see somebody just setting up a premise for a joke, and before they've said the punchline, you're like, oh, okay, I know where you're going with this, and I think that's why it's like made me like not want to watch comedy, and especially watching comedy live so often. I'm around live comedy so often. Trying to watch it on YouTube or on Netflix or whatever, it's so hard because you can't recreate the atmosphere in the room. That atmosphere is second to none. It's like nothing you'd ever see just trying to get it off on your iPad or on your phone or TV. It's weird.
Because you're a comedian,
Yeah.
you don't always let people in it. And then when you
I mean that's fair. Yeah.
and then when you let people in, you realize that there's so much more to you than just being a comedian. Like, you actually educate yourself on a regular basis, just on your surroundings.
Yeah.
Do you read?
Yeah.
seems like
I
you
don't
read.
read as much as I used to, but I want to. I've got like a subscription to The Economist and stuff now. Yes, made it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to get back into it.
It sounded like such a backhanded compliment what I just said to you. It's like, oh, I thought...
No, I mean, I get
I didn't mean it like that.
I get where you're coming from, though. I mean, I think we all make judgments off of people. I can understand where you're coming from. I mean, the thing is, it's often when you look at a lot of comedians, I mean, especially in this Instagram era, a lot of people don't know stand-up comedians because a lot of stand-up comedians are terrible at social media, right? They don't put out content because they're so focused on the stage and trying to build up an hour of material every year or whatnot. So I think what you tend to see often is a lot of Insta comedians or whatever you call them that tend to like act a fool in a lot of their skits.
Yeah.
And people assume when you say comedian, that's what they associate with first rather than whatever. Because you can look at it, for example, you look at Trevor Noah, you look at Jon Stewart when he was doing The Daily Show and whatnot. You look at Hassan Minhaj. Yeah, Hassan Minhaj in the States. You see what I'm saying? Like he's a correspondent on The Daily Show as well. And Michelle Wolf. You look at these people like Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle. These people, you wouldn't see them clowning around or like, do you know what I mean? Like what black people say, what white people say on Instagram. Do you see what I'm saying? But because there's a level of intellect there, and the way they're trying to, they come up with a point, and then they're like, okay, how can I make this funny?
I think the best type of humor is intellectual humor. There was a guy that I saw once, and his whole act, and you know who I'm talking about. It's like a tall white guy, long hair, but he looks a bit. He's lanky, and his whole comedy is about literally about like social policy and about stuff like that. But he's such intelligent humour. And it's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
I think all aspects of humour. Like I used to be a bit of a snob where I was like, nah, man, you got to be saying something in your comedy, bruv. You got to be doing something, man. Change the world. And then as I grew up, I was like, do you know what, man? Sometimes people have been working 40 hours a week, and they're tired. Do you know what I mean? So when they come out, they just want to hear some funny stories, man. They don't want to be told like, oh, the Democrats and the Republicans and the Conservatives and the Labour Party. Do you know what I mean? They don't want to hear all of that nonsense sometimes. They just want to be like, yo, bro, educate me. The skill is if you're able to have those messages in there that you want to portray to people and make it incredibly hilarious as well.
Bro, around the era when Trump was getting big and everyone's doing Trump jokes, did you ever jump on any Trump jokes?
No, I hated it.
Really? Because I had
the one thing I tweeted was when Trump won.
No, I'm talking about your stand-up comedy act.
Yeah, I know. Okay. But the one thing I tweeted when Trump won was, I don't think I can stomach Trump jokes for another 4 years.
Yeah.
I just find it so like lazy and thing. And this is the thing. I think we've got to a place where the more people joke about Donald Trump and the more people call him stupid and silly or whatever, they think they give him power to themselves or whatever. But it emboldens the right and his supporters, because it plays into their narrative where they continue to say, look, they're against us, the media are against us, fake news, this, that, the other. So where people continue to joke about it emboldens them, and it makes them feel stronger, like Trump actually has a point. And it's like, look, everybody still hates him, and people, and look what he's doing, he's still succeeding, blah, 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 blah. And it, for me, it's like there can be a lot more done without trying to insult him or make jokes about him, to try and I'm not saying go and support Trump or whatever, but I mean, it's incredibly hard to try and build a dialogue with somebody like that, right? But you've got to understand that he's very smart at what he's doing, and he's doing it for a reason. Do you see where I'm coming from? Like he'll make certain comments because he knows
really smart, but
he makes certain comments because he knows it appeals to a certain type of demographic that's gonna gain the support that he needs in order to carry out what he wants to carry out.
I suppose.
And I'm not saying like, oh yeah, we should embrace racists and we should hug them and talk to them or whatever. But I've always felt like
it could be counterproductive.
Yeah. I think, especially now we're in such a polarized society, it's like you could say something. You could just be like, oh, I like this video, and somebody go, no, it's terrible. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you're like, whoa, bro, like, can't we just say like, can't you just say like, do you know what I mean? Like, just ignore it. Like, if you don't like it. But it's like we've got to that stage where people can't look at the good things in certain things and the bad things in certain things. And I'm not saying Trump's good or whatever, but I'm just saying in terms of just in general in life, we've become so polarized. There's no center ground anymore. We can't just be in the middle and be like, oh, why don't we take some aspects of this and some aspects of that? And that's why we're in the situation we're in now, because you're sold so much stuff on this side. It's like there's no reasonable voice.
Do you listen to LBC, bro?
I try not to.
So the other day, I don't listen to radio. I listen to podcasts mainly when I'm driving and stuff.
The only reason I don't really like listening to LBC is because, I mean, one day they've employed some like abhorrent people.
Yeah.
But you get the format of the show so quickly. So I'm gonna say a statement that's so outlandish, and I'm gonna get people riled up so much to the point where they're gonna want to phone in. And then you're never gonna win.
You can't win, bro. This is what happened. I'm so angry, bro. This is the first time in my life I turned the radio off. like, you know, people say, "Oh, no, I'll go so angry, I'll turn the radio off." I just thought that was like a saying, and then I did it. So what happened here is the other day, randomly, I was listening to something. I think my car, I was just there was nothing on, and I didn't fancy listening to a podcast, or there was no new episodes of something on that I wanted to listen to, and I didn't fancy listening to much. So I thought, let me just turn LBC on randomly, which I don't often do, and then just see like what they're chatting about, right? So they're chatting about the Boris Johnson comments. A guy calls in, and he goes, I think that he gives a green light to people who XYZ because he's a high political figure. And this guy who's like presenting, I don't know who it is, but all of them are the same, If they have a caller who calls in who disagrees with their point, and the caller might have a very valid argument, they are so like patronizing, and they say it like as if the caller is saying something so stupid. So an example is this. So like, you pretend to be the caller now and say, oh, I think that is given the green light to other people, etc. And I'll be the presenter, So hello, welcome to
I think
LBC.
it's given it the green light for a lot of these racists to carry out what they want to do.
No, it's not. That's just stupid. Why would you? How could you insinuate such a thing? No, I have to stop you there. It's absolutely no. It hasn't given the green light. That's just absurd. Why would it have given the green light? What a silly connection to make. No. That's like saying, for example, that anyone who says anything bad has given the green light to anyone who does something bad. It's just a stupid insinuation to make. It just makes zero sense. No, it's not. It's like,
but the thing is, it's like I said, they control the mic as well, and so they know when to. They make you feel dumb,
but it's like, bruv, the point wasn't dumb. The point was very valid, but they so patronizing.
But again, I go back to what I was saying, though. People don't really know how to debate nowadays, man. It's like, I'll give this inflammatory statement and somebody's going to come on the complete other side to it rather than actually come in the middle and have a discussion about it. My honest opinion is, like, with anything, you achieve more by bringing people round to an idea, by discussing it nicely and whatever. All right, take for example.
Well, I personally
take for example Nate. For example, Nate didn't become Muslim because you guys was like, yo, Nate, you got to be Muslim, bro. You got to be Muslim, my brother. Nah, man. Like, why are you Muslim? Like, you lot never came in and did that to him. Do you see where I'm coming from?
No, they didn't.
No, but do you see where I'm coming from? Like, but if they were in that manner and was like, yo. Like, you've got to be... You probably would have been backed off a little bit and probably been like, this isn't an environment that I really want to be around because they're making me.
About to
Yeah. Yeah. Am I?
yeah, of
correct
course,
me if I'm wrong.
I've
right?
been around that before in the past, and it completely put me off. So I was like,
Exactly.
Nate was actually put off Islam because he was in his previous job. They would so harshly try and like convert him.
Okay.
And so we did the opposite here because
Exactly. But my point is, you created an environment which was friendly, which was inclusive, which was which fostered brotherhood and acceptance, right? So, of course, it looked like an attractive prospect to him, right? And I feel like even with all these sorts of things, like you've just got to be like, yeah, I don't tell people what to wear and what not to wear, but here's the reasons why we do it this way, that way, and if you believe that's beneficial to you, then yeah, come and do it. If you don't, then happy doing your own thing as long as we don't bother each other.
But some people don't want to have the like before they even have the conversation, they've made up their mind, you know, so they're already in a state of like conflict.
Of course.
And that's where it causes problems, because even with this like debate, before you've even like given your opinion, you've already created your own opinion based off whatever limited knowledge you might have.
Of course.
Without looking at everything. So like if you just literally deploy empathy, you can completely understand where that person's coming from, you know, and if that's their life and that's the way they want to live.
That's the thing, though. Sometimes, like, it's interesting. You've already highlighted that, and you already know that. So, as a Muslim man, or even if it's like, for example, a black man or whatever, and they come across some sort of prejudice, you've got to understand where they're coming from, and we shouldn't have to go through that and try and understand. But in an ideal world, everybody would just love each other. But you've got to understand that certain people don't come across a multicultural society like we have in London. So there's going to be certain things that they've been shown and certain things that they believe purely because of a narrative and an image that's been built up. So you've got to be able to provide that sort of helping hand, which is what often has happened to me when I mention I'm Muslim on stage and whatever, and people go, I don't usually like you a lot, but you're funny. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's like,
why don't you like us?
No, but it's because you're not being humanized. A lot of these people haven't come across a Muslim or a person of color, or do you see where I'm coming in any capacity? So when they're shown certain images and when they're told like this is the way it is, especially if you're quite set in your ways, then you can see how it would rile some sort of hatred, unfortunately. But that's why I think even with a lot of Muslim groups, I think outreach is an incredibly important part. Do you know what I mean? Not outreach even in just the sense of like, oh, this is what we believe or whatever. Just being present in the community in a positive manner. And this is the biggest problem, right, with a lot of these things, is people aren't humanized. You're seen as an other. You're seen as something else, right? Yeah. So if they just see you as that bloke Faisal that prays 5 times a day, that's different as opposed to, he's a Muslim. Do you know what I mean? He's scary. He's this, that, the other, or whatever. Do you see where I'm coming from? And
bro, even when I was working where we worked, I would take out time to pray all the time, and the amount of guys who would come up to me, who would have clocked who would have clocked when walking past and stuff, and they're just so like respectful of it, and they are curious about it and lovely about it. Like, oh, I rate that, man. Yeah, that's cool, man. And it's and even
because you'd go back on the shop floor and be happy go Larry and normal again.
And even Moeen Ali said this in the podcast. I don't know if he mentioned this on or off last time, but I know he wouldn't mind me saying it because he's not saying anything bad. He basically, I was asking him about his teammates and like how they feel about it, because they must see him pray all the time and this, that, the other. And he said, bro, what you realize is that the majority of non-Muslims will go out of their way to respect and love you and respect the fact that you got praying this and the other, as long as you kind of stay consistent with it. Because if they see that that's something that you value, they'll value it for you and they'll respect it, and they'll even go and say, yo, it's Faisal's prayer time, I'm going to cover his shift, even though I'm going to delay my lunch so he can do his prayer. And bro, I'm sure stuff like that used to happen, bro, even when I was on the shop floor.
Of course.
And that's because people do actually, I think for the majority of people, in their essence, they do have love and respect for it. And it's just, like you say, a lack of education. But I just want to kind of shift the conversation slightly to a topic which is, I don't know if you saw, but Tony Robbins, is that his name? The self-help guru.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't tend to listen to a lot of these self-help guys.
Oh, come on. That guy's huge. Is it Tony Robbins, Omar? Do you not know who he is?
No, I tell you. Do you know why I don't listen to a lot of these self-help
No,
people?
I don't listen to him, but he's
Yeah.
like, he's like,
I've heard the name, but
Okay.
it's not like I probably haven't watched the video.
yeah,
of it.
I don't listen to him. either.
I find a lot of. I mean, I'm very cynical in anything I watch, so it's just like that glass. I don't see it as full. I see what's outside the glass.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. Do you know what I mean?
That's
And I'm
what he's
just
like,
like,
yeah.
come off it, man. Like we just want a glass of water in it.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. But they change everything to like a metaphor for life or like success or business, and it's like you've got to be. I just can't.
No, it's
yeah.
true. Well, basically, what happened with him? So he's this guy who like, he's this like self-help guru in quote unquote marks, yeah. And I don't listen to him, but a lot of people do, and he's like the biggest one out there.
Okay.
And he sells out stadiums, bro. Yeah, or arenas. What's bigger, arenas or stadiums?
Stadiums.
Yeah, he sells out stadiums, I believe.
Mad.
Yeah. And it's just of him talking, yeah. And he's just like all this kind of like motivation stuff. And recently, what had happened, bro? Now, do you know what? We got to pull this up because it's so funny. Have we got a machine that we can like show a clip on?
Machine.
Bro, do you know what?
A machine. Do you have a machine? We've got some Macs.
Don't chuck it on there. Yeah, let me airplay it from my phone. Yeah.
Put it on YouTube on there.
Yeah, chuck it on.
You don't have to. Where's the?
So watch this, bro. So chuck the TV on, and I'll show you this thing. So basically, what this guy does, bro, yeah, is
Where's
the worst. He killed his career in seconds. Yeah. Oh, have you seen this? This Tony Robbins thing. Yeah. Right. So, bro, basically, yeah.
I want to see this. This is interesting.
Oh no, sorry. This is 4 months ago, but I only saw it recently, so it's still it's recent for me.
Yeah.
So he does his self-help stuff, and all right, I'll play it. Yeah, I'll play it. So, bro, this guy is so rich. Yeah, that's fine. This guy is so rich, yeah, that he I think he's got like, he's worth, I think, billions. And
Okay.
bro, he sells at stadiums, and people,
Yeah.
do you know how much money they spend for one ticket?
Probably like 50 quid, 150 or
Bro,
something.
$3,000.
3 grand to hear a guy talk.
Bro,
Nah,
free.
man, I'll
Oh
watch
my,
it
you
on
hear that?
YouTube, bro.
$3,000, bro. They pay for his tickets. Alright, so watch this video, bro.
They paid to see this guy, and he kind of ruined his career.
Bob, he destroyed his career so quickly.
Who knows what I'm talking about here, Sam?
Who's it?
Tony Robbins, the self-help guru who famously encourages his clients to walk on fire, is now being raked over the coals himself after igniting controversy with his comments about women in the workplace.
If you use the Me Too movement to try to get significance and certainty by attacking or destroying someone else,
I'm just going to keep pausing to commentate over it. So basically, what he's saying in the crowd is basically saying that a lot of people use the Me Too movement to like basically to their advantage unjustly, because they basically like use it to victimize themselves to try and get up to get a like increased position. Some of what he's saying, like, you can understand what he's trying to say, but the way he worded it wasn't great, and then he makes it worse.
Robbins was speaking at one of his Unleash the Power Within events last month when he made this statement.
So can you tell me something? What's your concern?
San Jose Arena was packed with attendees, among them Nadine McCool, who questioned what Robbins was proclaiming.
So I have lots of Me Too stories, and I'm also a survivor of violence in my home as a child. I think it was the Me Too movement that gave me the courage to speak up. I thought, oh gosh, Tony Robbins, you've got this all wrong.
So I think you misunderstand the Me Too movement. I think the Me
Not for you personally. What you're seeing is people making themselves significant by making somebody else wrong and getting certainty. And there's nothing wrong with that.
You see how he butted her in? He didn't even let her talk.
I'm not knocking the Me Too movement. I'm knocking victimhood.
But McCool doubles down on her defense of Me Too, a movement organized to empower sexual harassment victims.
And certainly there are people who are using it for their own personal devices. But there are also a significant number of people who are using it not to relive whatever may or will happen to them, but to make it safe for the young women.
Robbins invites Nadine to join him, pushing his point, and
Wait, I'm just pausing here for a second. This is the point he ruined his whole career.
pushing her.
But that's your best. Why are you pushing back? I didn't tell you to push back. Why are you pushing back? Why are you pushing so hard? When you push someone else, it doesn't make you more safe. It just makes them angry.
Apparently, it's something he does at a lot of his seminars, his pushing exercise. But I didn't know where he was going with it. I'm a tall woman, I'm 5'8". He is so big. And when he stepped up to me right at first and he looked down at me, I triggered because he looked angry.
And the larger-than-life personality continues.
So I just listened to a very famous man, very powerful man, who's saying how stressed he is because he interviewed 3 people that day. One was a woman, 2 were men. The woman was very qualified, but she was very attractive, and he knew I can't.
Yeah, we'll pause there because it's quite a long video. But my main point was that one. So basically, what he did is, first of all, yeah, he's speaking about the Me Too movement. He's had someone who's like disagreeing with him, and she's like she's saying that she has been positively like impacted by the Me Too movement, right?
Yeah.
And so the one thing you do not do when
Is
you
use your
probably-
power, and to demean somebody else. Yeah.
is physically push someone and then say like, why are you not fighting back? That was like worst thing you could have done. So bro, so basically my point was this year is that because I come across this video earlier a few days ago, and I was shocked by it because he's already on the back foot now, and he's decided to grab this woman physically and push her to try and prove his point. And now everyone's tearing into it because for a few reasons. A, because of that, because it's almost like he was offended by being challenged, and so he actually used his power to push her. Do you know what I mean? Which is weird. And then secondly, he did a lot of people were like angry that as soon as she was trying to make her point, he butted in, which is exactly what
what a misogynistic man would do.
Is like,
It's like, yeah, my argument is better than yours.
and some
my
people are gonna
opinion-
hear you.
Yeah, I'm gonna overpower you, and I'm gonna do everything that these monsters essentially do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then all that happened to her is that she was refunded her $3,000, and he put out an apology on Facebook, but people aren't obviously having it.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised.
Can you believe that though? The way he handled that.
I can believe that because there's a lot of men that get to those situations when they're kind of like so full of themselves and obnoxious. And where it's
Ego
like,
must
yeah,
have
they're-
taken over.
Yeah, exactly. Their ego is so huge that it's like you couldn't possibly be able to tell me about it.
Yeah.
And he's probably prepared that set, knowing what he wants to say and the points he wants to make. And then somebody's come out with like really good rebuttals and arguments against it. He's like, no, because what I wanted to say was this. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, exactly.
yourself
Yeah,
a
you
deep
do
hole.
dig yourself a deep hole. Absolutely, yeah.
He could have talked about victimhood, because his point, which is a valid one to an extent, is about a victimhood is a valid point. He's saying that, and I'm not talking about anything to do with like women in the workplace. I'm just talking about victimhood in general. He said that my point was that trying to victimize yourself in the workplace is not going to.
Well, I think in any sort of element, yeah.
He used like the wrong way to explain his point. It's like, bro.
Yeah, I mean,
I've
I've often said it in different respects, like, as in like my background, I'm Kurdish, and I've always been an advocate of not trying to let victimhood become part of the narrative
Right.
of your struggle,
Right.
because or struggle being part of your narrative,
Yeah.
because it creates a very nasty precedent for the people that are growing up, where they think, oh, everything's got to be about struggle and we're victims in life in general, where it's like, I'm a lot more about action rather than reaction. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's try and find solutions to problems as opposed to continuously talking about them and go, look how bad my life is. Look what's happened to me. Look at the injustices that I've gone through. I mean, like, it's important to be aware of your history or be aware of like events that have led you to be where you are. But at the same time, I feel like if you come across problems, it's not productive to sit around and wallow in self-pity. Get up and try and think of a solution for it.
Yeah, I do get to an extent. I think that I sometimes fall into that myself though. Like a big like almost like if I go through an issue, like victimize myself. I'm like, and I'm talking on a small scale though. I'm saying like, let's say for example, if things aren't just going my way, I'm like, they just aren't going my way. And then I like.
But I mean, I think that's natural. Like, but I mean, it's how you use that frustration, right? It's like, are you going to use that frustration to give up and just complain and be like, oh, well, I'm done with this now? Or are you going to use it to be like, all right, okay, cool, right, it's happened, but where can I go? If you lost your phone, for example, there's no point crying about it. The first thing you're going to do is go and find a solution, right? Like, do I buy a new one? Was it, if you may have insurance or whatever your view is on, do you know what I mean? Like, do I have insurance for it? Can I get it replaced quickly? Whatever. You're not going to go crying around like, oh, I don't have a phone. I wish I had my phone, man. It was so nice. I'd currently be on my phone if I had it with me.
True. Very true.
Yeah.
What did you study at university?
Biomedical sciences.
Really?
Yeah, I got into med school and then I had family problems around exam time. I flunked my grades and then I ended up, I got into like Plymouth Uni and then I was like, I'm not going because my dad had just had a heart attack and I was like, I'm not leaving the...
Is your dad still around?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
You say of course. You said he had a heart
No, sorry, yeah.
My dad had a heart attack. You still around? Of course.
Yeah, no, because I'd mention it if you hadn't. But yeah, then I stayed in London and I just got through clearing and I'd done that course. I hated it, by the way. I hated everything about it. And then I worked in financial services for a bit and I hated that. And I was like, I'm just going to follow something that makes me feel satisfied. So that was that.
Should we talk a bit about your weight loss?
If you want, yeah.
Because I remember you telling me about it and I think it's quite inspiring because when you were a kid, you were really
Yeah, when I was
chubby.
like 16, especially like 16, I was about 40-inch waist.
40-inch waist?
Yeah.
For 16-year-old, that's big.
Fat, bro. Yeah. This is why I don't like, and the only way I lost weight was a lot of fat shaming. It's why I don't really like this movement where people go fat shaming is bad.
Oh, because it helped you.
Yeah, and
it's still bad, surely.
I genuinely think, right, people, we should ensure that people are comfortable within their bodies, right? But we shouldn't kid ourselves into believing that being fat is healthy and being fat is good, right? It's not. Like, it's linked to every sort of disease you could ever think of, right? But just because mentally it makes you happy at that time to have a cheeseburger doesn't mean in the long run it's the best thing for you.
Well, we had a guest,
and we shame people for lots of things. But we shame people. We shame kids all the time in order for them to learn how to behave themselves.
Yeah.
Right? Do you see where I'm coming from? Like, shame isn't necessarily a bad thing. When you have shame, you have that because you believe you should be doing better or you believe you should be acting in a certain way, right? And I'm not saying like everybody has to be skinny or have a six-pack. Do you see where I'm coming from? But at least, yeah.
No, what you're saying makes it coincides with what. So we have a guy called Abdul Hakim, Sunnah Remedies, who's on here quite often, and he really does promote the fact that like you said, almost every disease comes from diet. And so when you don't have a good diet, then you have to deal with, but like you're going to be getting a lot of health issues because of your diet. And most health issues can be fixed through diet. And it's true, man, what he's saying. So you were 40-inch waist at 16 years old. How did you lose weight?
Gym and diet. Gym and diet. Weightlifting, man.
So you did weightlifting.
I used to be much bigger than this as well. When I
didn't do cardio?
I would now and again, but weights was my main thing. I hate cardio. I did a bit of boxing as well afterwards, but
so because of weight, because of weightlifting, you were sweating a lot.
Yeah, I was losing weight, man. So I mean, weight loss is easy, man. It's just calories in versus calories out.
So what did you do diet wise?
I just cut down my portions.
Okay.
Because I always used to eat quite healthily at home. It was like rice, chicken salad, and like vegetables and stuff. But I'd eat way too much of it and then have a snack and then have a sandwich and that kind of thing. So I cut out all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, it wasn't. I was never somebody that was like, oh yeah, let me have like 4 takeaways in a day or anything like that. But I just didn't care about what I ate.
But surely right now you must be eating like the equivalent of, or like even more than what you.
I do intermittent fasting now. So what I do is, I mean, there's a lot of information about intermittent fasting when you go online. There's an app you can download called Zero. You pop it in and it will tell you when you can next eat, and then it will give you a reminder on your phone, and it will go, hey, like, you've fast completed. So good. And as Muslims,
you, mashallah, you look big, like in a good way.
I don't think
so
I do a bit, yeah.
You must be eating a lot.
I don't eat as much as people probably think I do anymore.
Oh, is it?
I used to eat a lot. See, my whole thing is, I mean, you would know as in fasting during Ramadan, right?
Yeah.
Like, when you're told you're not allowed to eat anything, it's much more easier to not eat anything rather than once you start eating to like cut things out of your diet. And that's always where I've been at, right? So like if I have breakfast, it's hard for me not to go and have a snack, or like it's hard for me to cut out carbs or whatever. So when I tell myself I'm not allowed to eat up until like 2 p.m, I won't eat anything. And then when I eat, my appetite isn't as big as it used to be, so I can eat relatively well, like as in what I want to eat. Essentially, like I could have a bowl of pasta or whatever, but I don't eat as much because I'm like, oh whoa, like I'm full up. Whereas before I used to be able, I'd have that and I'd want a dessert and stuff as well.
Do you snack now?
Very rarely, you know. I don't really have like chocolates. I don't really have like crisps. Although this week I was a bit naughty, had a couple of crisps and whatnot. But I mainly try and snack on like nuts or like probably fruit. But I've cut out so much snacks. It's unbelievable. Yeah, I love chocolate, but do you know what? I became lactose intolerant, and that helped with like cutting a lot of stuff out as well, because it was just like, well, I can't have this, and this, and everything that has it in it. Like, you don't really want to mess up your stomach.
What do you think about? I have a guest on later on this week, and he's just recently become a vegan.
I respect that so much.
Yeah. What do you think about the you know, all these documentaries that some people say is very propaganda-y, and it's like very like it's not like they're not really using like real facts and all this kind of stuff. Like for example, that vegan documentary. What is it called? What the Health? Yeah, What the Health. Have you watched that kind of stuff?
No, I mean it's so like honestly, like when I look at some of these documentaries and I'm like, they're 2 hours long, I just don't have the time and like the patience to be watching a 2 hour long documentary.
I can't tell if these documentaries are sorry.
How do you get the because the battery got changed in this.
Oh, so the stream's down. Is the stream down?
Yeah.
Okay.
The audio's still there.
Oh really?
Well, yeah, the audio will be. It's on audition. It's attached to the mics, isn't it?
Okay, fine. Let me come try to fix that. Okay. Sorry guys, we just took a small break because the live stream went off, and it's our first ever live stream, so we had to fix it. But we are back. Kae has actually gone to visit the men's room, so we're just waiting for him to come back. And when he is back, we shall. Oh, I thought the G7X was on, bro. I was talking to the podcast this time. My bad. So everything's back and functioning now. The camera's on, mics are on, live stream's on.
We've got people watching from different parts of the world as well. So
we just have a missing guest.
We've got people from Canada, Germany.
Nice.
Not bad for a first one.
Germany and Canada. Happy about all that. And Kae is back.
Back in the room.
Back in the room, it's Kae.
Right. Yeah, let's go. We'll go for it. Yeah, what's up?
I did just want to pretty much say thanks for coming to the podcast, really.
Oh, is that it? Okay, we're done. Are we seriously done?
I think so.
Okay.
What's the time?
5:45. That's all right.
Yeah, we've had a nice hour and 15-minute set, which is longer than.
What's the current events? No.
We can't do current events, but only because we haven't prepared for it.
Okay. It's interesting.
So you're only getting half the freshly guarded experience.
Interesting. Yeah.
How? What's your longest set that you've done on stage? Because you just did a special, didn't you?
Our special, yeah.
Is that what you just recently did?
Yeah, Curd Your Enthusiasm. It was a show I took to Edinburgh last year. Sold out the Soho Theatre 4 nights in a row.
Yeah, because I remember.
I know it's a mad thing, innit, bruv? It was sick, man. Yeah, it was good, man.
So does that mean that you now have to write new material?
Well, I want to shoot this. I mean, that's the plan, is to shoot it somehow, and then I'll get like an hour of new material on the go. And
I mean, it would have been amazing to shoot it when you sold out for shows.
I know, but I want to do it somewhere closer to where I grew up and live.
Oh, nice.
Artistically, I just think it would look better. But
just
anyway,
say Brixton, bro. It's cool.
Well, no, I mean Brixton, Streatham area. But I just think, people don't understand, like, once you do it's like an album, right? You've done it. Once you put it out, then you can sort of be like, fly, my babies, fly. And then you've got to think of like new jokes, and that's the hardest part.
How do you arrange your special, like with the camera crew and stuff? You got to get all that yourself?
I'll talk about it off camera.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it depends who you want to do it with and how you're doing it. Yeah, it depends. Like, yeah.
Fair enough.
I'm not gonna like divulge business here.
But so after you've done this, after you've filmed this set, and then you put this special out, presumably you have to create all new material now.
Of course. Yeah.
Wow. How many times in your career have you had to do that? Like create completely new material?
Well,
Loads of times.
I've like when you first start out, you write.
Really bad material.
Yeah,
Is
you're
it?
constantly trying. I mean, you're constantly always thinking about different ideas and jokes and stuff, and you try stuff out and all sorts. But I mean, this was my first hour, so now it's like gonna be going back and doing like trying to get a new hour together. But I've already got some ideas about what I really want to write about and what I want my show to be about and stuff. I think we're in a very pivotal time at the moment right now. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of mixed messages in the world and stuff as well. People constantly discussing masculinity and politics and I think it'll be interesting to explore those avenues within comedy as well. Like often people are like, it's very hard to be a man, but men, you're allowed to cry and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, all right, cool, but how do you make it funny?
So where do you get your inspiration from? Because
just anything really.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I think I get inspired from anger and annoyance. Like if I see something, I'm like, what? Why are you so stupid? Why do you not get this? And I'm like, all right, okay, like, right, let's try and simplify this, or let's try and understand why people feel like this, and then work backwards from there.
Do you have the same management that you had, that you've always had?
Yeah. I've only ever been with
UTC
them.
or something?
Yeah. And I've, I think, it's always great to have a management that you don't feel like scared to call up. Do you know what I mean? Like they're like your friends, and you genuinely feel like they've got the best interests at heart, and that's how I felt when I met them, and I still do. But yeah, in terms of like even writing material, sometimes like there's so many different methods you can use. I mean, often in any sort of creative field where it comes into writing or be it like just creating anything, you might feel low on ideas. And I read a book once by a woman, I forgot her name now, it was Julia something, and it was like The Artist's Way. I didn't read the whole book, but there was like things in there, like tools in there that I picked up that help you get back into the mode of just writing. So like the idea of like waking up in the morning and writing everything that comes into your head, and just like writing for 2 pages without judgment, right? And not reading back on it, just like writing. Or sometimes when you want to be in a creative space, I think Chris Rock always says this as well, you really need to live within your own head. So you need to spend a lot of time alone. And I think the one thing that people don't understand about like not every creative field, not just stand up in general, but stand up, like you do really need to spend you will be alone a lot of the time. Like your friends might join you for your first couple of gigs, but after that, like you're on your own, man. You're going to be on your own a lot as well, and you have to be very comfortable with yourself and your own thoughts.
Do you speed read, or do you know how to speed read?
No.
It's something I looked into recently. It's really interesting because you can consume a lot more information at a faster pace. Basically, speed reading, what the ultimate aim of speed reading is to be able to read as fast as you can, but to retain everything that you would retain if you were to not speed read.
Yeah.
And then the skill is to constantly increase that speed, and constantly by not decreasing the retention that so.
That sounds very interesting, but it also sounds like
difficult.
Not something I would be able to do.
But no, you would, and it would be perfect for you because you seem like a person who, alhamdulillah, you have a lot going on in your life, but you also want to continue to educate yourself and to also...
That's why I think podcasts and audiobooks and stuff are so important these days as well, because especially when you're driving, it's very beneficial to just be able to have like...
I hear a lot of people say that they listen to podcasts at 1.5 times the speed so they can get through it quicker. Do you do that?
I've started doing that recently.
Really? I don't do that.
1.5 or sometimes, depending on what podcast it is, 2.
But I feel like I already speak at 1.5.
No, trust me, you don't. Like, you listen to a podcast and put it on 1.5 and you understand it. It'll be like, so what are we thinking about this week is we saw in Venezuela that there was a avocado, like whatever, and it's...
Venezuela, there's an avocado conference. Wow. What podcast do you listen to, Kae?
No, honestly.
Avocado conference
at one point,
Venezuela?
avocados had become more expensive than steak in Costa Rica.
Really?
Yeah, and that's where avocados grow anyway. Anyway, facts like that you pick up, like listening to random like business podcasts and stuff. But yeah, like that's how much the world's been into avocado.
You talk a lot about in your act about about like this movement of what is it called?
Gentrification.
Yeah, so like the idea of like, you know, people like having brunches and avocado and toast.
Well,
and
it's a lot deeper than that.
but
That's just the surface level effect.
But let's talk about service level effect. Do you find yourself doing that kind of stuff yourself? Like, are you a brunch man, for example?
No, I don't have brunch. I do enjoy a nice coffee though.
Yeah.
I do enjoy a nice
Do you
coffee.
like a
The thing is, I'm not against like having, like, what people don't understand about the whole gentrification conversation is like, yeah, of course we like coffee shops, of course we like nice pizza places, of course we like burger joints and whatnot, right? But the thing is, we don't like having those things at the expense of not being able to live in the area that we grew up in, or not being able to afford to live in the place that we live in.
Exile for the community.
Exactly. Do you see where I'm coming from? Like, it's like what tends to happen is it's always like, I mean, you saw it with Grenfell. It was the biggest indication of not only gentrification but like inequality in this country as well. It's like the only reason cladding was put on there was because it was the only tower block out of those tower blocks that was visible from a new build set of apartments that they'd created.
Really?
Yeah, and that's why they put cladding onto it, because they didn't want it to be an eyesore for the residents.
More
of that
visually
place.
appealing for the middle class.
Yeah. So those are like the real effects of gentrification, right? Where it's like the level of safety that was required for that cladding wasn't even thought about, and these people's lives weren't even thought about, purely on the basis of how that building would look for somebody else with more money. And that's the thing, when people come to these areas, they like it at the beginning because it's edgy and whatever, and then like people, like independent butchers get priced out, independent grocers get priced out, you don't get like as much shopkeepers and stuff anymore. All what comes in is bigger businesses. You get like these chains coming in, like you're going to be hard pressed. What another aspect of it I don't like as well is now every town is sort of losing its identity. So you used to be able to go to somewhere and be like, oh my gosh, bro, it's got this nice place that you could go to over there. What's happened now is everything sort of seems to look the same.
Unless you go to South or.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's there's a great lesson in ownership.
Yeah.
There's a great lesson in ownership about how a community is able to pool their resources and be able to actually own stuff in order to maintain their hold on an area.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Not that it's necessarily a bad thing, things happen, but yeah. It's a cycle anyway. It happens every now and again. Like if you look at like the history of, for example, like Harlem in New York.
New York, yeah.
It's like Dutch settlers, Jewish settlers, then African Americans, and now it's not. Now it's going through another cycle, like similar to what Brooklyn's going into as well. Thank you very much.
Kae Kurd, thank you very much for jumping on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's
No
great
problem.
to see what you're doing. Always keep up to date with your stuff.
Do you listen
Not
to
as
Freshly
much as I used to.
Have you listened to Freshly Grounded and stuff like that, and like?
I used to listen to Freshly Grounded every week.
Really?
But just life has happened, and I
Yeah,
haven't.
of
Like I don't really listen to a lot of the podcasts I used to listen to.
Yeah.
Just because like there's so many of them, and it's like trying to take out an hour or two every week to try and listen to them. Is
When you told me you listened to it back in the day, it surprised me that you listened to it. I don't know why.
I used to listen to it on the way to gigs and stuff. I still do, but I haven't listened to it in a while.
Yeah.
I'm being honest with you. I can be
Yeah,
like, yeah, man, I listen to it all the time, bro. Yeah. But yeah,
Most of our guests don't listen like
to every single one. Yeah.
well to any of it, because we bring on guests and I have to explain to guests what it is, and then they're like, because this is a conversation that happens when
But best friends, Faisal and Sam. Yeah.
bro, most of the time
I used to skip that intro all the time, by the way.
bro, you know, most of the time the conversation when I'm bringing on a guest, this is what the conversation is. I'm like, blah blah, I want you to do my podcast. They're like, yeah, cool. And then they have no idea what they got themselves into. They're like, oh, so what is it? And I'm like, oh, we're just having a conversation. Like, okay, cool. Like, how long do I need to keep spare? I'm like, it's ideal if you give me about 3 hours of your time. 3 hours? I don't understand why you need 3 hours. And then every time, bro, by the end of it, they're like, oh wow, I didn't even realize that we just had a 2-hour chat. Like, it just felt like we were chilling on the sofa. So yeah, it's always the same conversation with the guests, but now people are starting to use it. 'Cause people are still trying to understand what podcasts are. They're huge in America, but they're only now getting big in the UK. But
well, I think they're only now getting big amongst marginalized communities.
Oh, okay. They've always been big, like in
Middle
Guardian.
class have always, like the BBC and Guardian and all those places have been releasing podcasts for years.
Yeah.
I just think it's got to a stage now where a lot of younger people sort of like got interested in it as well.
Yeah, because there was a lot of like shows on there before, podcasts before, that were just like more like crime documentaries and stuff that were on podcasts by the BBC. But podcasting has been predicted to be the biggest form of media consumption in the next 5 years by some social media.
Of course, that's why
outlets.
even record companies now have got podcast divisions.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
because I mean, yeah, it's big business.
Yeah, you got to
isn't it?
jump on it. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for jumping on the podcast, bro. I really do
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you for having me.
And do come back soon at some
Inshallah.
point.
Inshallah.
And thank you for opening us up to the world of a comedian and a public speaker. One thing I wanted to get out of this podcast is really like I did right at the beginning, ask you some tips on like being able to stand in front of a crowd, because I think that's like, as you know, that's like the biggest fear of people. Somehow it's bigger than the fear of death. The fear of public speaking, which is crazy. And
When people say to me, you're so brave for getting up on stage, I'm like, bro, my dad used to be a freedom fighter fighting against Saddam Hussein's regime. So, like, that was brave. What I'm doing right now is not brave.
Mad.
It's not brave.
But it is something that people are scared of. So it's nice getting insight on someone who is doing it and like hear what it's like. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your experiences. And hopefully, inshallah, you will be back sometime soon.
Inshallah. Big up Faisal Chowdhury.
Let's stop the stream.